Welcome, everyone, to the Department of Justice, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, OJJDP webinar for CTAS Purpose Areas 8 and 9. My name is Christina, and I will be your moderator for today. It is my pleasure to turn things over to our subject matter expert from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. Your presenter today will be Kara McDonough.
Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Kara McDonough. I work with the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and I'm here with my colleague Jerome Boyd, and we will be taking you step by step through the important points of the 2019 grant solicitation as it pertains to Purpose Area 8 and 9. The solicitation is available online through the Grants Management System and is for federally recognized tribes and tribal consortia. In this presentation, you will learn how CTAS is designed to help you understand Purpose Areas 8 and 9 that are administered by OJJDP. We will also cover details of what is required in the application and how to apply. Please note that the CTAS application deadline is Tuesday, February 26, 2019 at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. All applications must be submitted by this deadline. If you would like to sign up for our listserv, you can go to www.justice.gov/travel and scroll down to the bottom of the page where it says keep in touch by email, and that will add you to our listserv, and we'll be sending out all the links to all the webinars that have happened so far, as well as other opportunities for other kinds of funding and training. In an effort to build on the success of CTAS, DOJ asks tribes how to further refine and improve CTAS through an online assessment tool, consultation sessions, listening sessions, and focus groups. Many of the responses and suggestions we receive are incorporated into each successive CTAS solicitation, which aims to be more user-friendly. Please be on alert for these opportunities to provide feedback. Our assessment questionnaire goes out after the CTAS application deadline to everyone on our current listserv. Please be sure to provide your feedback on your experience with the solicitation, whether you decide to apply or not. We value your feedback and strive to incorporate any suggestions that we receive into the following year's solicitation. Although CTAS provides one combined solicitation for all the purpose areas, the DOJ program offices that will administer the grants are the Community-Oriented Policing Services, which is the COPS office, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, which is also known as BJA, the Office for Victims of Crime, also known as OVC, and the Office on Violence Against Women, also known as OVW. And for Purpose Areas 8 and 9, it's the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, which is commonly referred to as OJJDP. It's important to remember that although there is one central application process in CTAS, the programs and requirements are administered by separate offices at DOJ that are governed by statutes that authorize the different forms of funding for which the tribes and their authorized designees are eligible. A description of the bureaus and offices that administer the grants and statutes attached to a particular purpose area can be found at the same website that I referenced in the last slide, which again is www.justice.gov/tribal. CTAS is not a program, but it's an overarching structure under which tribes can apply to 10 separate grant programs from 5 program offices through a single application. Last year, through the CTAS process, DOJ received applications from 197 tribes, tribal consortia, or tribal designees. Those 197 entities applied for a total of 475 separate grant programs. Of those applicants, 133 tribes were funded for a total of 225 different awards. If you look at the slide, you'll see that the total amount of funding available through CTAS has increased over the last 4 years from $98 million in 2015 to $113 million last year in 2018. The total applicants have varied through the years from a high of 234 applicants in 2015 to 197 applicants last year in 2018. Under CTAS, the Department of Justice provides funding for 9 different purpose areas which are noted on the screen. There is an additional purpose area that was just added this year, purpose area 10, and that is new. We'll talk about that a little later in the program. These purpose areas are DOJ's tribal government-specific competitive grant program. Applicants may select the purpose areas that best address their tribe's concerns. Grant funding under these purpose areas are related to public safety, criminal and juvenile justice, and the needs of victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other forms of violence. We've included this chart to offer some insight into the competitiveness of each of the awards, and for the award-making process for CTAS in general and for purpose areas 8 and 9 in particular. Highlighted in pink, you'll see purpose area 8, which is the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Courts program. You'll see in 2018, we received 9 applications and 6 of them were awarded. Under purpose area 9, which is also highlighted in pink, is the Tribal Youth Program. In 2018, we received 62 applications, and unfortunately last year, only 8 of those were awarded. While the award amounts can vary depending on final fiscal year appropriations, DOJ estimates that purpose area 8, the Tribal Juvenile Healing to Wellness Courts, will make approximately 5 3-year awards of $350,000. The estimate for purpose area 9, the Tribal Youth Program, is that approximately 19 awards will be made, each of them for a maximum of $400,000, and those awards will also have a project period of 3 years. Again, as I noted earlier, each year the overall CTAS process makes some changes, either in response to feedback that we receive or in response to changing availability of funding. The solicitation lists these overall changes in the opening pages of the document, and we like to lift them up to ensure that people are aware of the shifts that have happened since last year's solicitation closed. 2 of the larger changes concern changes to purpose area 7 and a new purpose area 10. Purpose area 7 now has a new title, the Tribal Victim Services Program. This program was funded outside of CTAS last year. If a tribal set-aside for OVC is enacted this year, the awards will be made through Purpose Area 7. Also, there's a new purpose area funded through BJA, Purpose Area 10, and it's intended to be used for addressing violent crime. These 2 purpose areas have had separate webinars that have already taken place. And again, if you'd like to access the links for those webinars, please do sign up for our listserv at www.usdoj.gov/tribal. Scroll to the bottom of the page and hit the link that says keep in touch through email updates. The other changes are more about the application itself. We've tried this year to make the question and answer templates more concise and to eliminate areas where we may have been asking you for the same information multiple times. If you're familiar with the CTAS application from prior years, you may notice some additional changes that have to do with the demographic form for the COPS, Purpose Area 1, and the budget detail worksheet. They both have been updated in an attempt to be more user-friendly. In addition, the solicitation itself has been streamlined. You'll now find that the application itself is shorter, and many of the more detailed legal language about requirements is contained in a separate document that's entitled Solicitation Resource Guide. We've also minimized the amount of pages that are required, moved the timelines into each purpose area narrative, and eliminated the application overview document. So the eligibility for our OJJDP purpose areas, for purpose area 8, the eligible entities are federally recognized tribes who propose to develop a brand new tribal healing to wellness court to respond to alcohol and substance abuse issues of juveniles under the age of 21. The eligibility for Purpose Area 9 is all federally recognized tribes or tribal consortia are eligible as long as they do not have an active Purpose Area 9 award currently. That means that any active TYP awardees that have a period of performance end date on or after June 30th, 2020 at the time of application are not eligible to apply for funds under this CTAS Purpose Area 9. This is because we have minimal amount of funds, you can see from the slide that was previous, and not that many awards that we're able to make. So if a tribe has a current active award, we're limiting the availability of these TYP funds to them. So we're going to go over some additional information about Purpose Area 8. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jerome Avoid to walk through those slides.
Good afternoon. I am Jerome Avoid, and I work in the Intervention Division here at OJJDP. I will be talking specifically about Purpose Area 8 pertaining to the Healing to Wellness Court. As mentioned a few slides ago, the current budget for the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court is projected at $1.75 million, and OJJDP anticipates making 5 awards up to $350,000 per award for a 3-year project period. The overall purpose of Purpose Area 8, the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court, is to respond to substance abuse, alcohol use, as well as opioid use for juveniles and young adults under the age of 21. Federally recognized tribes that have an existing court and are interested in developing a new Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court are encouraged to apply. All successful applications will be required to work with the OJJDP TA provider to walk through the key objectives over the course of the 3-year project period, which we will go through. Essential to the Healing to Wellness Court is the following of the 10 key components of the Healing to Wellness Court, and the key components, the link is in the solicitation. Specific objectives for Purpose Area 8. In the first year, the big year is really the strategic planning phase. So these are the points that go into that phase of your strategic planning process. Establishing a multidisciplinary steering committee, conducting a community needs assessment. You begin developing court policies and procedures, hiring of any staff that may be needed to work on the strategic planning process, participating in training and technical assistance activities that OJJDP has outlined, and develop resources needed to implement the Tribal Juvenile Drug Treatment Court. Year 2 is where you begin implementing the strategic plan that is approved by OJJDP. So you will be putting that plan into action. Additionally, you will be working on written data collection protocol. You will begin collecting data pursuant to the performance measures outlined in the strategic plan, and the performance measures are also in the solicitation. Working on a sustainability plan, discussing how you will continue these efforts past grant funds. Engage in the referral process, and also begin to accept individuals to the Healing to Wellness Court. For year 3, it's a continuation again of the implementation plan. That's part of the strategic planning process. And you will continue to collect all the relevant data, review and update the strategic plan and sustainability plan as necessary, which will be reviewed by OJJDP, and conduct a process evaluation with the assistance from the OJJDP designated TA provider. Applications for funding include a variety of things that funds can be spent on, in particular staffing, equipment and supplies, training, travel, and a strategic planning process, which is also detailed in the solicitation. Additional requirements for Purpose Area 8 include limitations on participation of violent offenders. In particular, for the purpose of this grant program, the term violent offender means a person under 18 who has been charged and convicted of particular offenses, and that is in the solicitation for you to read in detail under specific requirements under Purpose Area 8. The strategic planning period is very important as well. and this is the dedicated time used to put together the strategic plan for your Healing to Wellness court. We'll talk about the travel plans that will be required as well. As discussed in a previous slide, your budget needs to include travel costs. As outlined, we anticipate 3 trainings. One is a 3-day strategic planning session that will be held to go over how you work with your disciplinary teams to put together your strategic plan. That will be with our TTA provider. And for the purpose of the budget, as you can see, we requested to use DC as the location for all of the trainings. They won't all be held in DC, but we'll just use those for budgeting purposes. You should plan for a specific training for the Healing to Wellness Court Purpose Area 8 subject, and also the CTAS orientation training for 2 people. Again, all of these dates will be provided well in advance for planning and travel purposes and for you to identify your team. So how to apply for Purpose Area 8? In the solicitation, you will find a narrative template for you to download that you can utilize to put together information for this purpose area, and the links are also provided in the slides.
Okay, thank you. So for Purpose Area 9, funds for Purpose Area 9 support and enhance tribal efforts to prevent and control juvenile delinquency and strengthen the juvenile justice system for American Indian and Alaska Native youth. There are a variety of priority areas, including efforts at prevention, intervention, and treatment that are associated with this purpose area. Both OJJDP purpose areas contain a strategic planning period, and as Jeroma said, they both require travel to a strategic planning training. We do have a process for Purpose Area 9 grantees to work with our technical assistance specialists to assess whether the development of a strategic plan is desired and necessary for the particular program that has been funded. In the event that the effort already has completed a strategic plan that is current and relevant, then that plan may be submitted for approval and the program would not be required to undertake the travel or to complete a new plan. The Tribal Youth Program funding can be and has been used by tribes for a variety of efforts to work with their youth. Examples of successful TYP programs include those that are mainly focused on preventing juvenile delinquency. So examples of that would be efforts such as culture camps, after-school programs, family strengthening programs, language and other cultural revitalization efforts that are part of the youth development strategy, and youth leadership development efforts. Other successful TYP programs concentrate on intervention efforts for young people who are having some contact with the juvenile justice system or who have been identified as having high-risk behaviors. So tribes have developed anti-truancy efforts to help youth get on track to graduation. They've used TYP funds to create diversion efforts that provide young people with wraparound services and a path away from the juvenile justice system, and peacemaking circles where youth and their families can use restorative practices to resolve conflicts. Tribes have also used the TYP funding for treatment, such as mental health treatment, alcohol and substance abuse treatment that's used in conjunction with their Healing to Wellness courts, as well as other kinds of treatments such as equine therapy. Tribes can choose to apply for funding across a range of unmet needs. So for example, to fund parts of different youth-related efforts. But OJJDP does recommend that the proposal concentrate on a comprehensive project that can show impact over a 3-year period. That means that you may choose to concentrate on strengthening one area that has promise for growing into a successful ongoing resource for youth and families. We've found that the likelihood of youth programs being sustained beyond the grant period increases when the program can show results over time and when the program is aligned with other efforts at the local level. This may include the substantive involvement of key stakeholders such as tribal youth, elders and tribal leaders, as well as service providers, law enforcement, child welfare, court and probation officials, and schools, as appropriate and as applicable to your proposed program design. So as I've discussed, there are a number of different approaches that tribes can use their TYP funds for. There are a number of examples of prevention, intervention, and treatment approaches that you can review on pages 42 and 43 of the solicitation, and I've outlined some in the previous slide. The areas that are listed in the solicitation are considered priority areas for awards. They include prevention services to impact risk factors for delinquency and to promote protective factors, prevention, intervention, and treatment for children exposed to violence, development and implementation of tribal best practices and traditional healing methods to support tribal youth, interventions for court-involved tribal youth, intervention and treatment services for children exposed to sex trafficking and/or child exploitation, treatment services for at-risk and high-risk youth, services for youth in detention or out-of-home placement, and effective use of data. So there are areas listed in this slide that are examples of allowable costs, but we want to note that this is not an exhaustive list. Tribes should be aware that OJJDP funds a training and technical assistance provider that will work closely with your program at no additional cost. For that reason, on-site consultants should not be included in your budget. But if your program has an ongoing need for services such as treatment or evaluation, these support services or expert knowledge can be included. Please just include justification for any of the consultants that you do include in your budget. And as Jerome discussed for Purpose Area 8, there are a number of training events that we ask you to include in your budget. For Purpose Area 9, they're essentially the same as Purpose Area 8. You'll note one change on our slide, which is that we also use Washington, D.C. For budgeting purposes for the 1 3-day strategic planning session and for the 2 Purpose Area 9 specific training events. And we don't actually hold them most of the time in Washington, D.C., but we ask that you use them for budgeting purposes. But in the DOJ CTAS-wide orientation meeting for 2 people, we do ask that you use Palm Springs, California as the location for that meeting. So that means there's a total of 4 training events that we ask you to include in your budget. And again, these events are outlined on this slide and also in the solicitation. For all the CTAS purpose areas, including Purpose Area 9, tribes are encouraged to use the template that's provided in GMS. This is to ensure that your application includes answers to all the relevant questions. There are a lot of questions in the purpose area narrative, so we've put the template together in the form of questions and answers so that you can be sure that all the information that we're asking you to include is included. You will need your GMS password to access the document in GMS to begin to start to fill it out to apply. But if you just want to review those questions, you can open up the sample template that's available at the link that's on this slide, and you don't need a password for that. So we're just going to move into some general information about how to apply in GMS. Applicants are encouraged to register and log in at least 2 weeks before the application deadline to ensure that you're familiar with all GMS requirements. There are a lot of different requirements. It's because there are so many purpose areas and there's different offices, and because it's different funding streams, it can be a little overwhelming, especially if you're not used to the process. So we really highly encourage that you go into GMS, make sure that you're registered and that you're familiar with everything prior to being able to submit your actual final documents. The instructions are at the link that's provided. And we also really encourage you to use the GMS help desk. There's several different help desks that we make available to you. One is just really for the instrument that you're using, the grants management system. The system itself can be, there's a learning curve to really learning to use it. And if you're someone that has not used it before, please do feel free to use either the actual phone number that's on the slide here, 1-888-549-9901, or to send an email to the GMS help desk. They're there to really walk you through every single thing. They can see the same screen that you're seeing. You can ask them, what should I click now? Where do I put this? You can't see something if you don't understand the directions. They are funded through us to provide that kind of help to our applicants and our grantees. And they're open from 6 a.m. Eastern Time to midnight Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, except federal holidays. One thing that you should be aware of, again, many of you who are seasoned and who are kind of veterans to this process, this won't be anything new. But for anyone who may be doing this for the first time, there's a few things that you're going to have to do in advance of applying, because if you wait till the deadline and you get into GMS and you go to apply and you have not acquired a DUNS number in advance, you won't be able to submit your application. And we've seen tribes and other applicants actually come up against this, and it's really a tragedy. We don't want to see anybody have that experience where they put a lot of time and effort and planning into this, and then they get to the 11th hour and realize that they're not able to submit their application. So these are a few things that we really wanted to call to your attention. You have to have a data universal numbering system well in advance of applying. And you have to make sure that your registration with the SAM database is current. So SAM is the repository for standard information about federal financial assistance for applicants, recipients, and subrecipients. DOJ requires that all applicants other than individuals for federal financial assistance maintain current registrations in the SAM database. So applicants must update or renew their SAM registration annually to maintain an active status. So if you are a person who's not in charge of that, if there's someone else in your organization, please be sure to have that conversation and be absolutely certain that those things are taken care of prior to your submitting your application. So here's some additional notes that we want to make you aware of. Only one application per tribe or tribal consortium will be accepted. If multiple applications are submitted, we accept the last one. So please be sure that the last one that you submit is the final and the one that you want to be considered. Also, just a reminder that we cannot accept any applications after the deadline of 9 p.m. Eastern Time on February 26, 2019. And we also just want to make you aware that we do have a process if there's any applicants who cannot submit an electronic application for whatever reason. You must make us aware of that by calling 800-421-6770 by this Friday, January 25th, 2019, so that we can make other accommodations for you to submit your application in another way other than electronically. So just a reminder of the application timeline. CTAS did open this year on November 27th, and it closes again on February 26th, 2019, and that's at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot of the feedback that we've received in the past is a request to lengthen the timeline. It can really require a lot of coordination across a lot of departments, and that it takes time to craft these applications. And so we have, every year we've tried to extend that application period. I think, this year may be the longest that we've actually had it open. And we expect to award the grants no later than September 30th of 2019. And again, this is just a reminder that we really recommend that you submit your application well in advance of the deadline, just to make sure that all the steps are completed and that all the materials are in. Again, we have had the experience where tribes have unfortunately, and other applicants have unfortunately submitted a document that may not have been a final version, and they've asked to revise it after the deadline, and unfortunately we're not able to allow that. One of the things that really can help is to have those things in advance. So unforeseen local technical issues on the last day can also be challenging. And again, even if it's just a day or two before the solicitation closes, it provides an opportunity for you to double check your submission and ensure that everything is correct, as they can be revised up until that actual deadline. So we also wanted to make you aware of some additional help that's available to you. I think I've talked about the website and the webinars. Again, unfortunately, during this particular period, the partial government shutdown is preventing us from keeping that website completely up to date. But the listserv that's available, by scrolling down to the bottom of the page at that website is still operational. So it's a little bit tricky this year, and our apologies for that. But the website itself, you'll see a message that says, that the shutdown is preventing us from actually updating the website itself, but it's not preventing us from sending out information via the listserv. So we're doing that really frequently. We're sending out links to the archived webinars. We're sending out other opportunities that are becoming available. There are fact sheets that are updated on that website that are still current. There are frequently asked questions, and there are also sample successful applications that you can review. They were all posted prior to the shutdown, so you can still access them. And you can still access the response center. So this is the other help desk that I wanted to make you aware of. I think I talked in a prior slide about the GMS help desk, which is specific to negotiating that particular system. So they are experts on walking you through the exact place to click and exactly how to, access your information and submit your application. This DOJ Response Center, which is tribal grants at usdoj.gov, and it's 800-421-6770. That is more broadly about the CTAS application. So if you get off this webinar and you meet with your team and you come up with questions that maybe you didn't have on the webinar, you can send them an email, you can call, and they will be able to answer your specific questions. And if it's something that they need a subject matter expert for, they will be sending it directly to us for our answer. So please take advantage of those help desks. Again, they're funded by DOJ specifically to help you all. So in addition, there is an online guide to assist tribes in preparing for CTAS, and it can be found at this link that is on your screen. The guide contains strategies to read and comprehend a complex grant solicitation, coordinate a robust grant writing team, identify the needs of the community through data-driven processes, generate and capture ideas and solutions from your community, and organize key community players to execute the proposed program. So the CTAS committee was instrumental in creating this online guide, and it does help you think through and prepare in all these areas of planning your program and your proposal, and it includes an entire section on budget. We encourage you to use the guide for more in-depth detail on what we've briefly gone over here. Each section is rich with information, is interactive, and includes downloadable worksheets and tools to help you put together your best proposal. This online guide is not a requirement for getting funded, and using it will not directly increase your likelihood of getting funded. But we on the CTAS committee have poured a lot of knowledge and resources into it, and we hope that you do find it helpful. OJJDP also has additional resources that are available to you as you put your proposal together. The website www.tribalyouthprogram.com is available to all tribes, and there's resources on there. There are trainings and webinars. There are other kinds of tools. There are archived webinars on there, and you can request training and technical assistance from the experts that are available there. You can learn more about healing to wellness courts, about trauma-informed care, and other topics relevant to the development of programs for tribal youth. In particular, the information on the healing to wellness courts is available on that website. And you can see that there's a Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court Handbook. There are information about the tribal 10 key components. There's also information about successfully funded programs that you can review. So we encourage you to take advantage of those resources. In addition, we encourage you to access the information at wellnesscourts.org. This is operated by the Tribal Law and Policy Institute. You can also go to their website, and they are subject matter experts on healing to wellness courts, and they work closely with OJJDP on training and technical assistance. So in conclusion, we just wanted to provide you with some tips in putting together your CTAS application. We really highly encourage that you read the solicitation and the frequently asked questions that are on the website. It is a dense document, so it does not hurt to read it multiple times, to have different people on your team read it, to make sure that you are capturing the most fundamental requirements and that you understand exactly what's expected in this proposal. And again, please use the help desk if there are any questions that arise as you are reading. Please use the resources that are available through the CTAS website, through the help desk, through the training and technical assistance providers that have been highlighted in this presentation. We also suggest that you use the scoring criteria that's available in the application as a general guide for how many pages you devote to each section. The purpose area narrative is most heavily weighted, and so you'll want to spend the most time and devote the most pages to those things that are going to be scored most heavily. Again, as I said before, you really put yourself in a very stressful situation if you wait until the deadline to apply. So getting your application in early and having the chance to look over it, to revise it, to have some fresh eyes look at it is a good tip for success. Follow all the format directions. Also, if you can go back and review your tribal community and justice profile after completing the purpose area narrative, you can check for the ways in which you've connected the dots between the profile, the narrative, and the budget. That is what reviewers are looking for, that these different areas complement each other and that they are consistent and they're cohesive. So it may be that you have different people working on the profile, the narrative, and the budget. So if you give yourself some time and go back and review these items after you complete the narrative, you can make sure that any revisions you want to make to highlight the connections between those areas that you can make. Ensure that you attach all the required attachments and also any helpful attachments that will help the peer reviewers to really understand your program and what you're proposing. Also, it seems obvious, but clearly labeling and PDFing all your attachments will go a long way to making your proposal cohesive and understandable to the reviewers. And also, you want to double check pages 61 and 62 of the CTAS resource guide. That contains a checklist of all the required elements. So if you can use that as a guideline for when you're actually submitting to make sure that you're not missing anything that you intended to submit. So one of the most important elements of submitting a great proposal, a proposal with a high probability of being funded, is taking the time to plan. The CTAS committee reviews proposals, and the peer reviewers are looking not only for well-written documents, but for what the proposal represents: a thoughtful program design, solid partnerships, strong knowledge of the challenges, and a program that will deliver results for the benefit of tribal communities. So in order to have a good plan, you will need to do a few things: read, assess, plan, design, partner, organize, and attend to details. So just a reminder that the deadline is Tuesday, February 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We are excited about the CTAS application process as developed with advice and assistance from tribes, and we thank you for working with us to implement this approach. We're very happy to take questions, and so I'll turn it over to our facilitator at this time to read our questions. Please feel free to continue to submit new questions as we go through this process.
Great, thank you, Kara. We do have a few questions, and the first question is, with regards to purpose area number 9, would funding for a vehicle for youth probation officer be eligible for funding under this purpose area?
Thank you for your question. There is nothing that would prohibit you requesting a van for that purpose in purpose area 9. So the important thing would be to use your application and your budget and your tribal community and justice profile to outline the need and to outline the program and the goals and objectives and how that van, sort of is connected to all those different things.
Great. Thank you, Kara. Under purpose area number 8, would the development of a law and order code be allowable?
A juvenile justice code? Yes, so my response to that would be, if it's a juvenile justice code, you can work with us, with our TTA provider, and we can help the tribe with that.
Great, thank you. Is there going to be an extension on the CTAS due date as a result of the government shutdown?
Thank you for that question. As of now, there is no plan to extend the due date. And the reason for that is that our offices, the Office of Justice Program, and the other DOJ components that are involved with the CTAS process are not part of the partial government shutdown. I know that we do know at this point that the Office of Justice Programs has funding through March 1st. So we know that OJP will not be shutting down and will not be part of that. I know it can be somewhat confusing because there are parts of DOJ that are shut down, but the ones that are associated with the CTAS applications, the GMS, the help desk, the response center, the components that are involved are not part of that shutdown. So as of now, there is no plan to extend that deadline.
Great, thank you, Kara. Under purpose area number 9, we cannot serve 18 or older. However, many high school seniors are 18 for a full year before they graduate from high school. Is there an exemption for students who just happen to be older than their peers?
That's a great question. The funding that we use to fund these tribal youth programs contains the prohibition on use for young people 18 and over. However, if a program has youth in it that are 17 and below, and those young people turn 18 and they're still part of the program, there's nothing that would prohibit your program from continuing to serve them. So that would be one way of ensuring that you could serve all high school seniors, would be to begin a program earlier in their high school careers and craft your program and design your program so that you are serving, everyone as they go through the process of making it to graduation.
Great, thank you, Kara. Can you provide more elaboration or maybe even an example of what a strategic plan is?
Sure. The strategic plans that we go through with both Purpose Area 8 and Purpose Area 9 are undertaken in conjunction with a group of people. So we ask the tribe to identify key players in their program, to have them involved with an advisory committee to work with that program on really outlining key elements that are going to build a solid, strong program that has a good chance of sustaining itself. So what we have, really learned over time is that these grant programs can be really problematic in that, they're time limited. And I'm sure many of you have seen examples where there's some funding to do something that involves, youth, and, at the end of the 3-year period, when the funding goes away, so does the program. So the strategic planning process really helps those that are invested in the program to think through some key elements, like how could we form an advisory committee of people that are invested in this program to build something really solid. So something that has goals that are measurable so that we could look at, what kinds of data we can collect, and how can we make the case about what constitutes success for us. So maybe what constitutes success is raising our high school graduation rate from its current, level of, whatever it is, 75% to a level of 90%. And I'm completely making up these numbers, but let's say that's our goal. So that means that we have to form relationships with schools to see, to be able to get those high school graduation numbers and to be able to look at things as they're unfolding. So maybe we're looking at our exactly what our goals are, exactly what kind of data needs to be gathered so that we could have measures, and then to look at a communication plan. How can we get the word out about this program so that we can educate people who want to invest in it, or that we can educate the community about the importance of it. So those are all things that are involved in strategic plans. There also is a lot of information on the tribalyouthprogram.org website. There's draft strategic plans that we use. Please feel free to review. Those are some of the elements, but not all. We also have found that helping work with a tribe through a strategic planning process for their program also helps with staff turnover. So if there are things that are written down that are the intentions for the program, then if there is turnover, the person who's coming in has something that they can pick up and continue to work with the program and with the other interested and invested people.
Great, thank you, Kara. Is there a minimum request amount for Purpose Area 9?
There is no minimum request. There's only a maximum request of $350,000 total.
Great, thank you. Can we add additional trainings or conferences to the travel budget? For example, the National Tribal Youth Conference.
You can add additional training to your budget if there are specific things that you know that you're going to need. If you are referring to the National Tribal Youth Conference that happens every other year in California, that actually is included in your budget. So that's one of the events that we asked you to build in, if that's the same one that you're referring to.
Great, thank you. How detailed should the project timeline be? Should it be step-by-step or just highlighting the big steps?
The timeline for Purpose Area 9, and I'm going to let Jeroma speak to Purpose Area 8 because they are a little bit different. For Purpose Area 9, your timeline should include the major steps that you know that your program is going to need to take in order to accomplish your goals and objectives as you understand them. So we're looking for, some consistency between your timeline and your Purpose Area narrative. So if you say in the narrative that you intend to work with, a group of 20 middle schoolers in an after-school program that you'll be developing during a strategic planning year, then we would be looking for things on your timeline like, when will you be recruiting those 20 youth to participate in your program? When would you be hiring the staff that will be staffing that program? And things like that.
Hi, and this is Jeroma. In relation to the Healing to Wellness course, it's a very similar answer. We were looking for more high-level detail of what you will be doing in regards to objectives, in particular the objectives for each year. So not so much in the weeds, but enough detail to give us a good picture of how you plan to move forward and how you plan to achieve each step in pulling together your strategic plan.
Great, thank you. Can we fund the writing of a juvenile justice code using Purpose Area 9 funds?
You can fund the writing of a juvenile justice code as part of a Purpose Area 9. If you are interested in developing a Healing to Wellness court and you don't already have one, a juvenile justice code could also be funded as part of your Purpose Area 8. If you're not interested in developing a Healing to Wellness court at this time, but you are interested in revising your juvenile code or developing a juvenile code, you can submit that as part of a Purpose Area 9 proposal. Also, if you need technical assistance around the development of your juvenile justice code, that is something that our training and technical assistance providers can assist you with.
Great, thank you. We have had the Juvenile Healing Court Grant. We've had a year to continue after on our own. Now we would like to expand from our current ages 12 to 17 group to ages 18, 19, and 20. Can we reapply?
Thank you for the question. So the requirement for the solicitation for this year is to develop for new programs. So it sounds like you're just, this question is for an extension of a current program. So it sounds like you would not be eligible because it needs to be a new development of a new court.
Thank you. Is a van allowable for Purpose Area 9 Tribal Youth Program?
Yeah, I think this is a popular question, and I know that there is a lot of need for transportation. To the extent that a van is an integral and necessary part of your program proposal, you can request it in your budget. So in other words, if you submit a proposal that sort of just says, you know, we need a van because, you know, we don't have a van, and, you know, we have this big need for a van, but you don't connect it to your juvenile justice needs in the tribal community and justice profile, you know, if you're not connecting those dots, then the likelihood of it being funded is pretty low. But if you're able to make the case in your community and justice profile of the need, and then in your purpose area narrative for a program that you're proposing to address that need, and then you have a budget that also is consistent with those other pieces, and as part of that budget, you submit for funding for a van, that's a proposal that has a good likelihood of being funded. And I say that having shown you the slide that this is an extremely competitive purpose area. And we get a lot of really good applications for Purpose Area 9, and there is a lot of need. And every year we have a lot of regret that we can't fund more of the need, and we can't fund more of the really good proposals. So, you know, to the extent that we're able to fund your program, there's nothing about including a van that would disqualify you.
Great, thank you. And regarding Purpose Area 9, we have a matured tribal youth program. Could you please expand on the required strategic planning activity as part of our plan of work?
Okay, thanks for that question. That's a great question. So I'm not sure whether you mean this is one that's been funded by OJJDP in the past, or whether you just have a program that was funded elsewhere that has been around a while, that maybe you're seeking to expand or you're seeking to sustain it. And any of those things is allowable. If you have a program that has been funded by OJJDP before, you are probably aware of the fact that we build in this strategic planning training, and we have this planning process kind of built into all of our grants. And in the past, you know, we've kind of made that across the board requirement. For this year and the 2018 and for 2017, we've started something new, which is if your program really doesn't need to do a complete strategic plan because you already have a strategic plan that you're working from, maybe you just need to update it, you know, but you don't really need a full planning period and you don't really need the training. You've been through it before, you've already used it. Then, you know, we want you to, once you're awarded, we want you to let us know that and kind of go over the plan that you have with our technical assistance folks. And, you know, if it meets all the requirements that the rest of our strategic plans are, you know, held to, which is, you know, a series of components that we ask you to complete, then we won't ask you to do another one just for the sake of making another plan. We don't want you to do anything that's not helpful to your program. If you're in that situation, what I would do is I would attach your completed strategic plan to your application and explain in your proposal that, we've already done this, we're already working from this, and here's what our program is looking for funding for now. And, our intention would be not to do another one, and that we don't need the training. So you can include that in your application, but we're aware that there are tribes that don't need this, and we're not trying to make you do it just because we want you to do another plan.
Great, thank you. Can you talk about successful applicants from small and rural communities? What has made their applications feasible and compelling for a CTAS award under either of the purpose areas?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that we strive to have very knowledgeable peer reviewers. I believe that last year, and for a number of years now, all our peer reviewers, everyone who's reading your applications, has expertise and knowledge with working with tribes. And for OJJDP, we strive that they have expertise with youth programs and with tribes, either separately or together. The folks who are reading this really have a lot of expertise and are bringing a lot of experience to bear. And I think what they are looking for is they're looking for consistency. They're looking for a compelling tribal community and justice profile that outlines the fact that your tribe has really done some work to look at what is needed, that the questions that are in the template are answered really thoroughly and completely. If there is information that you don't have, let's say there's data being asked for that you don't have, because it doesn't exist or because the effort that would be required to obtain that data hasn't been supported yet, include that information and your rationale and your sort of your story really on why those things are not available. I think what I've seen applications get points deducted for is if a question is not answered and there's no additional information that's being provided. I've also seen points deducted for things that are mentioned, let's say, in the program proposal that are then not mentioned in the budget. So let's say, you say again that you're planning to work with 20 young people in an after-school program, and then when you get to the budget, there's nothing that indicates that there's staffing or supplies for that after-school program in there. So it just looks like there hasn't been a lot of thoughtfulness or deliberation taken to kind of follow the steps of the process. There are a lot of steps, and it is broken down in a way that's very linear. That can be tedious if there's a group of people working on it. It does need to come together into a comprehensive whole, even though it's broken up into a lot of pieces. And again, we're aware of, how difficult that can be. The most compelling proposals that we see are tribes that are really thoughtful about things that they've tried before, why they have or haven't worked. In the event that they have worked, using those lessons to expand that to solve current problems. In the event that they haven't worked, being able to look at lessons learned and try something different and have, maybe other resources brought to bear. Innovative solutions that are being proposed, I think, are always compelling. And, proposals that it's clear that somebody isn't just sort of regurgitating what is, asked for in the proposal and not really providing any additional local and tribal specific details. That's a great question.
Great, thank you. And for Purpose Area 9, can we begin the program before the strategic plan is completed?
The answer to that is yes. The strategic plan, it's not meant to delay your process of implementing services for your young people. You could be starting something and also working on your strategic plan to add some components to it. So no, it's not completely linear in that way.
Thank you. And is the Purpose Area 9 award $400,000 for a 3-year project period, or is it $400,000 per year for each of the project years?
This is a really good question, and I wish I could say that it was $400,000 each year, but it is a total of $400,000 for the 3-year project period. So just to elaborate on that a little bit for both of these awards, I think the other thing that peer reviewers are looking for is that there's an understanding of what those funds actually are capable of doing over that 3-year period. So just a consciousness about, how to use them well and not overextend or, sort of not be purposeful about the use of them. There are, other programs that are, that have additional award amounts or that are larger amounts or longer program periods. So I think the peer reviewers are looking for, how would you work within these limitations? And how can you be creative with the challenges that these limitations create?
Thank you. From a previous TYP grant, can we service existing equipment with new funds?
Service existing equipment with new funds. I'm not sure exactly what equipment you mean, but in the event that maybe let's say you're talking about, let's say you bought a van under a Purpose Area 9 award in the past, and you need maintenance on that van that would still be used to serve young people, then the answer would be yes.
And to clarify, this would be in regards to mountain bikes.
Okay. So to the extent that the mountain bikes were purchased for a youth program and you would like to use these funds to service them so that they can continue to be used by young people in the context of a program, then the answer is definitely yes. I want to just add one other comment here, which is even though the peer reviewers are experienced and have expertise, in working with tribal programs, what you should not do is assume that they understand, the different aspects of your program. Sometimes it's like, say in that example, if you were to put mountain bikes in your budget, but not explain mountain bike maintenance, let's say, but not explain in your narrative that this is part of what we're doing and we already have these materials, and it might raise questions. So just you want to provide enough detail so that your application doesn't raise a lot of unanswered questions for the reviewers, so that it kind of answers their questions rather than opening up lots of questions that they don't understand.
Great, thank you. Kara, Jeroma, are there any additional comments or information that you would like to share today?
I really wanted to thank everybody for your time and really wish you the best of luck on your application.
Thank you for joining us today and have a wonderful day.